Hey guys, tonight we wander across the endless Mongolian steppe, where the wind rattles the tent flaps and a horse stands with his nose turned stubbornly away from a fresh bundle of green grass. The sun is rising in a cloudless sky, painting the horizon in bronze and gold. You can almost hear the distant hooves pounding across the open plain, and you might even taste the dust in the air. You'd think a horse out here, after all those endless rides, would pounce on his breakfast like a teenager hitting a fast food drive-through. But no. This horse sniffs the grass with complete disdain and waits, eyes half-lidded, for a treat he knows is coming. You probably won't survive this place with such picky habits, but the Mongol horse somehow can. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up to that horse, wondering how a creature bred for war, famous for eating frozen grass under a blanket of snow, could ever crave something as delicate as a sticky sweet date. That grassy bundle you dropped on the ground is still fresh, a bright green hope in a dry world, but he nudges it with his nose, unimpressed, waiting for something better. You scan the saddlebag nearby and spot a wrinkled brown date, like a small sun-dried gem, and hold it out. That's when he comes alive, lips quivering, soft teeth crunching as he accepts the fruit with a twitch of the ear that says, "Finally." There's something deeply comical about a warhorse behaving like a spoiled child in a candy shop, and you can't help but grin. These horses carried archers to the edges of the known world, helped shape empires, and still they prefer dessert before breakfast. Historians still argue whether these sweet-loving horses were simply conditioned by their riders, or whether they genuinely developed a taste for sugar over centuries of subtle trade. This morning on the steppe, with the golden sun stretching long shadows, you remember a mainstream historical fact. The Mongol horse was famously hardy, surviving on the absolute bare minimum: stunted grasses, half-frozen water, sometimes nothing at all for days. And yet, here stands one, prancing around like a pastry chef's apprentice, waiting for his sugary fix. That, my friend, is what you'd call luxury in a place where even humans sometimes went to bed hungry. You rub your eyes, wondering if you're dreaming. The scene feels ridiculous, but it's true. Dates had made their way from far-off oases and river valleys to these rough camps on the steppe, slipping in through trade routes, and the horses, just like their riders, got a taste for them. There's even a fringe little tidbit tucked away in obscure Mongol lore, Some believed horses fed dates would be so loyal they might even refuse to follow another rider, a kind of fruit-fueled oath of devotion. Whether that holds up or not, nobody's about to test it when a horse outweighs you by a few 100 pounds and could probably bench press you with its nose. You wander closer, brushing the horse's mane, marveling at the raw muscle beneath that dusty coat. These animals were genetically tailored for war, sure, but they were also gentle enough to be handled by children, tough enough to live through storms, and, apparently, sweet enough to demand a bit of dessert to start the day. Maybe that's the biggest lesson of Mongol life. Even the strongest among us have a soft spot, a moment of craving that cuts through all the armor. And so the horse crunches away at his date, eyes closing in what could only be described as a sugar-induced trance. You look around at the other horses, tied to weather-beaten stakes, stomping the dry earth, their tails flicking lazily against flies. The air smells of manure, old leather, and that faint, honey-sweet aroma of dates drying in the morning sun. If you squint, you might see riders moving between yurts, wrapped in layers of sheepskin, readying bows, rolling up blankets. The entire camp breathes in rhythm with these animals, and you realize if the horses decide to go on a date strike, the whole war machine might grind to a halt. One joke drifts through your sleepy mind. Maybe the Mongols could have taken over the entire world if they'd only brought more dates. And another, imagine trying to explain to Genghis Khan that his unstoppable cavalry was being delayed because the horses wanted a snack break. Sorry, Great Khan. Your army will be ready just as soon as we pass out the fruit. You stand in the breeze, letting the horses' rhythmic chewing calm your nerves, listening to the sounds of water bubbling from a worn-out leather bucket. If you focus, you might catch the echoes of older stories, of a time when these horses carried warriors across China, Persia, and Eastern Europe. But even then, even in the thick of conquest, they paused to taste something sweet. There's a strange comfort in knowing that, no matter how harsh the world becomes, something as simple as a piece of fruit can still bring a moment of peace. Maybe it's that tiny taste of sweetness that made all the difference in an empire that could easily devour entire cities. Who knows? Maybe this horse, who won't even look at his breakfast grass, is reminding you that comfort matters, even if you probably won't survive on dates alone out here. The sun climbs higher, warm on your face, a slight promise that this new day will hold more stories, more surprises, and certainly more than one horse who wants his dessert before dinner. You sigh, letting the sweetness of dates and the mystery of why a Mongol horse loves them more than grass pull you onward. The date's sticky sweetness still clings to your fingers as you step away from the horse, and you can almost taste its syrupy tang yourself. You look across the grasslands, a sea of low hills rippling in the morning light, and realize how rare such sweetness would have been to these nomads. Sugar, after all, was practically a luxury in the medieval steppe. The Mongols grew up gnawing dried meat, stale curds, and flat cakes of barley. They weren't exactly drowning in candy shops out here, so when a single date appeared, sun-wrinkled and fragrant, it must have felt like magic. You wander past the other horses, who shuffle around, hoping you'll spare another sticky treat. It's almost comical. Beasts bred to ride for days, to trample entire kingdoms, now acting like toddlers waiting for a cookie. Their craving makes sense, though, when you consider that their riders were just as sweet-starved. One mainstream historical fact: refined sugar barely existed in 13th century Mongolia, except as a trade good. Honey was far more common, but even that was precious. A dried date, packed with natural sugars, felt like biting into a treasure chest. As you walk, the air fills with the scent of cooking mutton fat and warm milk. Riders step out of their felt tents, wiping their eyes, tying up their braids, and there you are, carrying a few more dates, surrounded by horses, giving you the side eye. You can't help but joke. If these animals had Instagram, their posts would all be about dessert. Had date lover, grass may. Historians still argue whether the Mongols truly preferred dates over local sweets, or if the horse's taste for them was pure accident. Some say dates were only occasional gifts, not daily treats, and that their role is exaggerated in modern stories. But as you stand here, letting a horse's warm breath swirl around your hand, it feels easy to believe they crave them like candy. You watch as a young rider, barely 14, coaxes his shaggy horse to lower its head. He pulls out a single date, splits it with a practiced flick of the knife, and holds half for himself, while the horse gently takes the rest. That tiny exchange says more than a whole history book about Mongol trust. Food was never wasted out here, but it was also a bonding ritual. Sharing a precious date sealed something between human and beast, a silent promise of loyalty. The horse chews slowly, eyes softening, and you can practically see it daydreaming, maybe imagining a warm oasis somewhere south, where dates grow by the thousands, heavy on low palm branches. That oasis is a world away, yet the taste still arrives, carried across deserts and mountains by clever traders. In this dusty camp, a single bite of that sweetness links you to a caravan snaking its way from Samarkand, Bukhara, or beyond. That's the magic of the Silk Road, working its subtle wizardry through your saddlebag. Another fringe tidbit you overhear while passing a group of older herders. Some believed dates helped protect horses from the harsh steppe winds, as if the sticky fruit carried a hidden power. Sure, there's no science to back that up, but it's a charming bit of folklore. Maybe that sugary burst made them believe the horse's spirit was stronger, a kind of equine pep talk wrapped in natural sugar. You pause at a hearth where a family pours steaming milk into carved wooden bowls. The adults talk trade prices, arguing over the value of a single date against a sack of dried lamb. Their voices rise, sharp as knives, then settle again in laughter. It's the same argument you might hear today at a farmer's market over organic strawberries, worth it, or a total rip-off. There's something beautiful about how sweetness brings people and horses together. It reminds you that even in this tough, brutal, war-scarred world, everyone had a taste for something gentle. If grass was the daily grind, dates were the stolen moment, the reward, the luxury. A small child darts past you, squealing, trying to feed a pony a tiny, half-squished date. The pony nibbles carefully, eyes sparkling, and you can't help but chuckle at the scene. Here, out on the bare steppes where winter can murder the unwary, the simplest sugar becomes a festival. One of the older riders catches your eye. His voice is deep, cracked from a lifetime of desert winds, and he jokes that horses love dates because they're sweet as victory. You almost snort, but it makes sense. Victory itself is a taste, something rare, something you chase. Maybe the horse thinks dates are what triumph tastes like. Historians still debate whether Mongol horses craved dates for the calories or for the taste, but watching them today, you'd guess it's both. The horses chew each bite with a kind of dreamy abandon that no grass can match. Maybe it's the rush of quick energy. Maybe the tiny taste of foreign lands. Or maybe just the delight of something new. You move through the camp, date in hand, with horses watching your every step like you're a celebrity chef. The sun continues its slow climb, burning away the last of the dawn chill. Riders gather up bridles, check girths, and prepare for the next long trek. But you know one thing, they'll be sneaking dates to their horses along the road, a little sweetness to keep spirits high. The breeze tickles your face, carrying with it a smell of crushed sage and warm leather. A quiet moment lands on your shoulders like a soft cloak, reminding you that in this world of constant motion, even a single sticky fruit can hold a universe of calm. And so you walk on, teasing the horse with one last piece, letting it linger just out of reach before handing it over at last. The bite disappears in an instant. The horse sighs, and you both stand there for a moment, enjoying a piece that only sweetness can buy. You keep strolling through the camp, date paste still clinging to your fingertips, when you spot a row of merchants haggling by a line of saddle-laden camels. The colors of their robes catch the morning light. Deep indigos, bright reds, patterned silks. And you sense that these aren't your average local traders. These are Silk Road veterans, the men and women who slip through deserts and mountains to bring the world to places that might otherwise never see it. As you wander closer, you see bundles of spices, folded bolts of silk, and sacks of, you guessed it, dates, mountains of them, honey brown and wrinkled, glinting like nuggets of caramel in the sun. You have to grin. No wonder the horses were giving you those puppy eyes earlier. They could probably sniff this merchant camp from miles away. You drift through the crowd, feeling the weight of history around you. A mainstream historical fact rises to mind. The Silk Road wasn't really a single road at all, but an enormous network of trade routes stretching all the way from China to the Mediterranean. It connected empires, religions, even flavors, and dates were among the most valuable snacks to pass along it. It was portable, high energy, and, no surprise, sweet enough to charm even a jaded Mongol warhorse. One merchant waves you over, his teeth stained from chewing betel nut, and gestures toward a wide palm fiber basket brimming with dates. Good for you, he rasps. Good for horse. Best dates from Bukhara. You want to laugh, but he's dead serious, and so is the price he names, more than you'd pay for a strong bowstring. In this world, a single handful of dates could be a small fortune. You lean down, studying the fruit, and can almost hear the horses behind you sigh in hope. But something else fascinates you. You wonder how many dates had been smuggled in hidden pouches, traded through backroom deals, or gifted to powerful khans trying to sweeten alliances. Historians still argue whether the Mongols themselves actively demanded dates as tribute from their subject peoples, or if these treats just naturally flowed in with the rest of trade. Either way, the result is clear. The Mongol diet, both human and horse, was never the same after. A thin boy in a turban scampers past, carefully balancing a shallow tray stacked with dried apricots and dates. You catch his eye, and he gives you a sly grin, as if to say, "You wish you had this much sugar, friend." Then he's gone, weaving through the tents like a dancing kite. There's a fringe tidbit you remember hearing from a one-eyed caravan guide, a rumor that Mongol scouts used dates to predict an approaching caravan's wealth. If the dates were shiny, soft, and unbroken, it meant the traders were successful and wealthy. Crushed, dry, second-rate dates? Probably a desperate or unlucky bunch, best left alone. Who knew a sticky fruit could double as an economic indicator? You stroll between a few more merchants, inhaling spices sharp enough to sting your nose, and listen to their chatter. They talk of Chinese porcelain, Persian carpets, Indian gems, But dates, simple and humble, still command respect. You even hear someone comparing them to cavalry rations, tough enough to travel, rich enough to matter. That makes sense, you think, glancing back at the Mongol horses lined up patiently for their next bribe. One grizzled herder shows you a date that is nearly black, dense as tar, and brags that it came from across the Iranian plateau, ripened under a desert sun so strong it could melt iron. You hesitate before offering it to a horse, wondering if it'll be too strong, but the animal chomps it down in one happy bite. Well, there goes that experiment. These horses, it seems, have no sense of moderation. You notice the traders packing up, rolling their carpets, loading the last dusty crates onto patient camels. Business on the steppe never stops. There is no open, close sign, no lunch break. It's a swirl of movement, day and night, as goods shift from hand to hand like a living river. You wonder if somewhere down the line, a date is being traded right now for a sword, a roll of silk, or maybe a bride price. A joke sneaks into your head. The Mongol horse might have a more varied diet than a college student in finals week. Grass, a sprinkle of salt, and of course, dessert. And there, you think of a second one. If they'd had vending machines back then, they'd be stocked with dates, guaranteed. You make your way back through the maze of merchant tents, carefully avoiding a pair of hissing geese tethered near a dye trader. The warm breeze makes the date sugar smell swirl around you, teasing your empty stomach. You understand, in that moment, why even an empire could be charmed by sweetness. After endless battles, nights spent under thin woolen covers, and constant worry about arrows, and cold and hunger, dates are a rare moment of joy. You head back to the horses, still tied to their wooden stakes, some dozing in the sun, others nickering for your attention. You toss one of them a leftover date from your pocket. It snaps up the fruit with all the focus of a child unwrapping birthday candy, and then goes right back to looking bored, like royalty, demanding more. Historians still debate whether these horses might have become spoiled by this treatment, or if their sugar fix made them even stronger in the long run. But seeing them now, muscles rippling, eyes bright, you suspect a horse fed on dates was probably happier, and a happy horse runs harder. The shadows grow longer as the merchant train begins to move. Camels complaining, traders calling out warnings. Somewhere, there will be more dates on the horizon. Traveling into another Mongol camp, ready to sweeten yet another unstoppable cavalry. And maybe a war horse somewhere else is dreaming right now of that sticky bite, just as the breeze ruffles its mane. You wander back toward the horses, where the sticky date juice has already vanished from your hands, wiped away by the dry wind. The horse you first fed is still there, shifting his weight and flicking his tail, staring at you like he expects a refill. You chuckle. He has the confidence of a celebrity chef demanding a second Michelin star. You rest your hand against his broad neck, feeling the powerful muscles flex beneath the dusty coat. And in that touch, you sense an animal evolved to thrive in places most creatures would simply die. A mainstream historical fact bubbles up in your mind. The Mongol horse was a small, stocky breed, perfectly suited for long travel with minimal feed, able to graze on frozen scrub and keep going in temperatures that would chill your bones to powder. But something changed. That horse, once perfectly happy with snow-bitten grass and meager forage, has learned to crave dates. It's not just a passing fad. You see it in the way he paws the dirt, in the spark of focus when you open your pouch. Something deeper is happening here, and you wonder how a warhorse's palate could shift so completely. Historians still argue whether the horses truly developed a fondness for sugar through deliberate feeding, or if their taste evolved because their riders trained them with sweets over so many generations that it rewired their cravings. You lean toward the second explanation as you watch your steed nearly sniff your pockets right off your tunic. You give in, pressing another sticky date into his soft lips. He chews with such obvious pleasure that you nearly burst out laughing. Who would have thought a Mongol war machine could melt over a piece of fruit? A breeze rustles through the sparse grass, carrying with it the dry scent of horse sweat, leather, and a hint of warm dates. You look around, realizing just how much this odd craving is woven into the daily routine. Riders offer dates to their horses as if it were the most natural thing. It's no longer a rare treat, but something expected. That's when a fringe tidbit creeps back to you. Certain Mongol shamans believed horses, like people, could develop sweet souls if fed sugar-rich fruits, making them more gentle and cooperative in dangerous situations. They feared an angry, mistreated horse was an omen of disaster, but a horse treated to dates would run with a lighter heart, maybe even guided by spirits. A teenage girl walks past, leading a wiry chestnut mare. She pats its side, slips it a half date, then gives you a grin, as if to say, "See? It works." You realize these aren't just war horses, but partners in a complicated, almost spiritual dance. Dates are more than food. They're part of the unspoken language between rider and mount. You stroke the horse's mane, seeing how its ears flick with contentment. That horse will stand in the swirling snows of winter without complaint, leap into battle at a moment's command, and thunder through cities with fires burning all around. But it will still stop to taste a date if you offer one. That contradiction is perfect somehow. There's a light-hearted moment when one old writer jokes that horses crave dates because grass tastes like broken dreams. You smirk, thinking how right he might be. Dates, after all, taste like summer, sweetness, and all those good things you dream about while huddled in a sheepskin tent. As you stand there, you notice how the other horses sniff each other's breath, checking to see who got lucky with a date. The horses seem to gossip in their own way, noses bumping, tails swishing, like a crowd of office workers debating who brought donuts. You can't help but laugh. A group of boys rolls past on ponies barely taller than your chest, racing each other through the dusty lanes. One stops, yells to his friend, and waves a tiny pouch of dates in the air. You hear him shout, "He'll run faster with these." Maybe he's right. Historians still debate whether a sugar rush actually helped the horses sprint harder, or if it was a psychological boost, like your second cup of coffee before a deadline. The sun grows harsher overhead, baking the clay earth to a pale crust. You shield your eyes, studying how the horses have learned to dig their hooves into cooler patches of dirt, clever enough to find comfort even in misery. That's the step wisdom baked into them. Survive first, savor sweetness second. One last time, you offer the horse another date, letting him crunch it with a satisfied sigh. Then he leans against you, warm and powerful, an animal who has crossed mountains, rivers, and battlefields, yet still finds happiness in a bite of fruit. You think about how strange it is, this bond built on sugar. It reminds you of every gentle bribe you've ever given in life: a candy to calm a screaming child, a cookie to soothe a sulking friend. Even among warriors, a taste of sweetness still bridges the gap between beast and human. The horse flicks its ear, almost as if he can hear your thoughts. Maybe he can. In that uncanny way, horses seem to read you, sense you, mirror you. There is something old and eternal in those dark eyes. Something you feel would run away if you ever betrayed the date-giving ritual. You step back, letting him breathe, and see the wide-open world of the steppe stretching in every direction. No fences, no borders, just grass, sky, and 1,000 tiny stories carried on the wind. And somewhere out there, you know, grows another palm tree heavy with dates, waiting for the next Mongol horse to discover that life is sweeter than grass. You wander deeper into the camp, weaving between yurts patched with brown felt and worn rope, while horses doze or chew at their picket lines. Near the center, you spot a group of archers putting away their weapons after a morning practice. The clatter of horn bows and the gentle squeak of leather signals the end of drills, and already the riders are reaching for the soft bulging pouches at their waists. There, hidden between knives and coins, are dates, dark, sticky, precious. One by one, they call their horses forward. A gentle word, a whistle, a quiet clap, and each horse's head lifts with hope in its eyes. These are warriors, ruthless enough to conquer entire kingdoms. Yet here they stand, calmly offering tiny fruits to beasts that trust them with their lives. It's like a bedtime treat, but for unstoppable war machines. You stand back and observe how carefully each horse takes its reward. One small bite, then another, never snapping or pushing, always gentle. It strikes you how clever these riders are. They don't just feed for the sake of a snack. They're using these dates as an early form of positive reinforcement, a training aid. A mainstream historical fact supports what you see. Mongol horses were famously obedient to voice commands, responding to subtle touches and whistles, far better than many cavalry horses in medieval Europe. Part of that came from careful, consistent reward systems. Like these dates, historians still argue whether this practice was a conscious strategy or just a happy accident. Did Mongol generals sit around a smoky fire, plotting a sugar-based horse discipline plan? Or did the riders just notice that a horse ran better after a tasty treat? Either way, it worked. You walk closer, drawn by the calm confidence of these warriors. They don't scold or beat the horses into submission. They persuade, one sticky bite at a time. It reminds you of modern animal trainers using food rewards to build trust instead of fear. One of the older riders gives you a wink, holds up a date, and says, "For the legs of thunder." You grin, half expecting that to become a sports drink slogan one day. A tiny boy with a shaggy black pony waits his turn, struggling to untie the cloth pouch. When he finally frees a date and holds it out, the pony lowers its head and accepts it with a soft huff of air. That moment, as ordinary as it looks, is a first bond. The boy beams like he's won a prize. You notice how calm the horses become afterward, tail swishing slowly, hooves steady, ears flicking back and forth to the familiar voices around them. There's a hush in the air, a kind of silent agreement that sweetness brings peace. A fringe tidbit floats up from an old tale you once heard. Mongol riders sometimes train their horses to associate the taste of dates with the trumpet call of war, conditioning them to focus before charging into chaos. Imagine the strange link between a sugar rush and a battle cry. It's almost comedic. Here's your date. Now go destroy an army. You pause to watch a group of riders practicing formation drills, galloping around a dusty ring. Whenever one horse falters, its rider leans down, produces a date, and coaxes it back to speed. You can almost hear the horse's brain recalibrating. Date equals effort. equals praise. It's so simple, yet it works with near-perfect precision. Historians still debate whether this was the Mongols' secret weapon. Was it archery, strategy, or a pocketful of sticky fruit? You'd bet at least a slice of their success came from these little sugar bombs. You let the image settle in your mind. A date, a bow, and a horse, all working together to remake the map of the known world. Not a bad recipe for domination, you think. The sun hovers high now, baking the camp until the felt yurts sweat under the heat. You slip into the shade by a low canvas awning and sip a bowl of salty, buttery tea. Even from there, you see more riders feeding dates to their horses, calm as monks handing out offerings. One warrior leans against a wooden spear, watching his horse chew, and jokes, "If they ever learn to steal dates from my pocket, I'm finished." You laugh because he might be right. That horse looks at him like it's plotting a heist. As you move along, you catch sight of a pair of girls teaching a fresh colt to bow its head on command. They use a piece of date as bait, shaping each movement with careful patience. The colt obeys, then whinnies, then obeys again, completely in their thrall. Who needs a whip, you wonder, when you have the equivalent of a medieval chocolate chip cookie? Around you, the whole camp seems to move on a wave of date-fed cooperation. There's no panic, no rough fighting, just quiet harmony between horse and rider. It's a gentle joke on the entire world, really. These ferocious invaders are running their empire on sugar. You sense how peaceful the horses are, the sweet taste acting like a tiny promise. A promise that if they listen, if they trust, they will be rewarded. And in return, they will carry their riders across the edge of the world again and again. One last horse nudges you as you prepare to leave the training circle. You hesitate, then slip him a final date. He crunches it with such innocent joy that you almost forget this is the same animal that would trample armored knights under iron hooves tomorrow. Somewhere deep down, sweetness rules them all, no matter how terrifying their day job might be. You wander away from the dusty ring of training horses, weaving through lines of smoke curling up from cooking fires. The familiar scent of mutton fat and boiled milk clings to your clothes, but there's something else in the air today, something richer, almost floral, drifting on the breeze. You trace it to a low table where a few welters are sharing a small plate of dates, carefully split and pressed with crushed almonds. It feels almost absurd, like a pop-up cafe in the middle of a war camp. But you slip closer, listening to their easy chatter. They pass one of the sticky morsels to a passing boy, who then hands half to his pony without missing a beat. That's the way here. Humans and horses sharing the same treat. No hierarchy, no second thoughts. You sit on a worn stool, letting the moment soak in. The men talk about journeys through Persia, about the fragrant groves where these dates once grew thick as rain. You try to picture palm trees, tall and regal, casting shadows over water channels, while here on the steppe, the wind tries to claw every drop of moisture from the earth. It's an impossible contrast, these palms of abundance and the endless Mongol grasslands of harsh survival. A mainstream historical fact pops into your mind. After their great conquests, the Mongols did not just loot and burn. They adapted. They learned. They carried home new foods, new seeds, even new animals, folding them into their own rough cuisine. Dates were no exception, and Mongol traders eventually grew them wherever oases allowed, bringing a taste of the Middle East back to the grasslands. You watch a younger rider slip dates into a small pouch, ready to share with his mount later. It's a blend of cultures, this date culture, part Persian luxury, part Mongol grit. Historians still argue whether the Mongols truly embraced Middle Eastern date farming on a large scale or just kept importing them through trade. Either way, the date's role became woven into Mongol horse culture, so much so that even centuries later, stories about date-fed war horses still float on the breeze. The image makes you grin. A creature built to graze dry grass on the world's coldest plains, now obsessed with a fruit grown in desert heat under gently lapping irrigation. It's a marriage of opposites, as if a biker gang suddenly took up tea ceremony. The breeze tugs at your hair as you stand again, drifting past more families tending to their animals. You pause at a line of pack camels, their soft muzzles reaching for a basket of dates just as eagerly as the horses. Seems like every four-legged beast here has developed a sweet tooth. One elder near the water trough tells you a fringe tidbit, that in some Mongol families it was considered good luck to let the horse taste a date before the human, as a way of inviting the blessings of faraway lands into their home. Strange, you think, that the horse becomes a kind of gatekeeper for luck and fortune. But maybe it makes sense when that animal is your lifeline, your war partner, and your friend all in one. Children run past you, shrieking with delight, swinging simple braided whips and laughing. Each carries a date or two as if they were carrying trophies. You see them toss bits to ponies, teasing, making the animals chase them for a sweet bite, turning play into trust, training without even realizing it. That, you muse, is how Mongol riding skills were passed down, not through dull drills, but through these living games. Historians still debate whether these games were deliberate lessons or just childhood fun that happened to build better horsemen. But the result is clear. These children grew up comfortable on horseback, so comfortable they could shoot backward at a gallop while laughing, and their horses followed because dates had taught them trust. You wander past the cooking fires again, hearing the bubbling of milk tea in wide copper kettles. Someone offers you a bowl, and you take it gratefully. The warm, salty brew settles your stomach, but the aftertaste of dates still clings to your tongue. Around you, the murmur of evening preparations builds, sharpening arrows, mending bridles, folding blankets. Horses yawn and shuffle, tails flicking as the late sun paints them gold. There's a joke in your mind you can't resist. Mongol horses might have been the first real sugar junkies, rolling into battle with a grin and a sugar high. It feels true, watching them lick date syrup from their riders' palms. One old woman waves you over to help her tie up bundles of firewood. As you work, she tells you about how, after big raids, the Khans sometimes sent their fastest couriers back with crates of dates as a gift for the horses who'd carried them to victory. A thank you from conqueror to steed. No gold medals here, just a few handfuls of sticky sweetness. You finish stacking the wood, then look back at the circle of elders still sharing their pressed dates and almond paste. The horses hover near them, eyes soft, almost gentle, as if they, too, sense a deeper calm in this small feast. You think about how strange and beautiful it is. Mongols taking a piece of desert paradise and making it part of their own world. The sun is falling now, coloring the plains in stripes of copper and rose. Horses breathe easier as the wind cools, and you swear they're dreaming of more dates already. You run your hands along one powerful shoulder, marveling that such a beast would choose a sticky sweet over a whole pile of fresh grass. As dusk gathers, you wonder if somewhere out in the vastness, a date palm grows wild and alone, waiting for a Mongol horse to one day taste its fruit again. It's a funny idea, but out here, even the impossible sometimes feels true. The evening deepens, the sky shading from copper into a cool blue, and you can feel the day's heat draining away from the earth like a held breath finally exhaled. The camp settles into a softer rhythm, with horses breathing in slow, steady huffs, their silhouettes framed against the glow of low fires. You walk among them, hearing the clink of iron stirrups and the faint rustle of warriors sharing quiet words before sleep. One of the younger riders approaches you, proudly displaying a new batch of dates wrapped in a woven reed basket. He offers you one, sticky and warm from the day's sun, and then gestures for you to feed the next to his horse. You hesitate, but his grin is impossible to resist. The horse takes the fruit so delicately you almost forget this is an animal bred to trample and terrorize entire kingdoms. There's something about that moment, so gentle, so human, that makes you think about how even the Mongols, these rough-edged conquerors, wrap the act of feeding dates to horses in a sort of ritual reverence. A mainstream historical fact drifts back to you. The Mongols blended spirituality into almost everything they did, believing that every living being had its place in a cosmic order. Animals were no exception. They were partners, protectors, even spiritual intermediaries. Somewhere between practicality and prayer, dates began to take on a deeper meaning. You remember hearing from an elder once that dates were sometimes offered to horses before great journeys as a blessing, the sweetness serving as a charm against bad luck. Historians still argue whether these rituals came from Persian influences or grew from Mongol beliefs themselves, but the practice survived, written into the folklore of the steppe. You stroll on, the horse now following you with a low, hopeful nicker. You grin, reaching into your pouch, but hold back for just a moment to tease him. His ears twitch in frustration, but he follows, calm and obedient. You think about how the sweet fruit had become a stand-in for all sorts of prayers, a kind of edible talisman. One fringe tidbit you hear from a bearded storyteller by the fire. Some Mongol shamans claim that horses fed dates would not only stay loyal, but might carry a rider safely through the realm of spirits if he died in battle. That makes you shiver a little. The idea of a horse guiding its fallen master across the afterlife on a sugar-fueled journey. You step closer to a row of yurts, drawn by the smell of boiling herbs, and spot a group of women pounding dried dates into a paste. They mix in a sprinkle of ground seeds, forming a kind of energy cake that they pass around to both riders and horses. Everyone needs stamina on the steppe, and a little date magic goes a long way. The horses nibble it with enthusiasm, and you almost expect them to say thank you. They stand so still and respectful in the firelight, eyes reflecting the dancing flames. Maybe they sense the hush, the ritual, the mystery of nighttime. Historians still debate whether these horse rituals were more show than substance, or if they genuinely believed in a protective sweetness. You suspect it hardly matters. Belief, after all, can be as powerful as fact. The breeze grows chillier, and you pull your cloak tighter, but the warmth of the fire and the scent of dates keeps you grounded. The gentle sarcasm of the moment lands on you. Imagine telling a medieval knight in Europe that a horse on the other side of the world was basically worshipped with a sugary treat. A medieval candy cult, you think with a laugh. Nearby, a boy sings a lullaby while brushing his horse's mane. The pony sighs, leaning into the touch, its mouth still sticky from the date. You stand there, letting the song wash over you, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over the entire camp. There is no rush, no hurry, just the quiet bond of trust. You notice how the dates bring a sense of familiarity to even the most terrifying warriors. These horses carry death on their backs, Yet right now, they stand as docile as farm ponies, won over by a bit of fruit. It's a gentle contradiction, and it makes the Mongols feel more human somehow. The horses shift, hooves scuffing the ground, tails swishing, waiting for more. You hold out another piece, letting the horse's warm breath brush your palm. His teeth close around the date so gently you have to laugh. Yes, definitely a sugar junkie. A joke forms in your mind. These horses might go to war for glory, but they'd stay for dessert. The night deepens even more, stars punching their way through the sky one by one. The fires burn low, and you hear a dog bark in the distance, answered by the yip of a fox on the far edge of camp. You stand there, steady, part of this living moment, tasting the same sweetness as a horse, and realizing that in the great spinning chaos of history, small joys might be the only thing that makes any sense at all. You walk away finally, letting the horses settle, their bellies warm, their spirits calm. You sense they will carry dreams tonight, dreams of palms heavy with fruit, of desert breezes, of places far beyond the steppe. Maybe in their sleep they remember the sticky bite of a date and find some little spark of peace that will guide them through another harsh day tomorrow. The dawn returns with a sharp chill, burning off the smoky night air and chasing away dreams with a bright, demanding sun. You step out of your felt blanket, bones cracking, breath misting, to find the horses already stirring, tails swishing, hooves shifting, heads turning in search of breakfast. The moment you bring out your pouch, a wave of horsey hope surges toward you like hungry kids seeing an ice cream truck. You can't help but laugh at their unashamed craving. But today, something is different. You see a senior rider, hard-eyed and wrapped in a fur-lined deal, scolding a younger warrior whose horse sniffs for dates before even touching its grass. The older man's words are quick and sharp, echoing over the quiet camp. Let him eat grass. Don't spoil his legs with sweetness. A mainstream historical fact hits you. The Mongol army's power rested on the unmatched endurance of its horses. These animals could go without rich feed for days, even in winter, living on frozen grass or bark while pushing onward. That hardiness was their advantage, and now some feared dates would soften them. Historians still argue whether this concern was widespread or just a few traditionalists worrying too much. Maybe they had a point. One glance at a horse refusing perfectly good grass in hopes of sticky fruit is enough to worry any practical herder. The Mongols could not afford a cavalry of sugar addicts. You watch the older man pace, flinging his arms, lecturing about spoiled hooves and lazy hearts. His voice rises to a squeaky shout that makes you smirk a bit. Even in an empire built on steel and terror, someone is always there to say kids these days. And now it seems, horses these days, too. There's a fringe tidbit you hear from a passing gossip. One legend tells of a Mongol commander who banned dates for an entire summer campaign after noticing that his best war horses grew slow and sleepy from eating too many. Whether that was true or just one grumpy general's excuse to save rations is anybody's guess. But the image of battle-hardened chargers napping after a sugar binge is too funny to ignore. You keep observing. That same senior rider ties up a bundle of rough grass, practically forcing his horse to chew it, while the animal sulks, eyes rolling, clearly longing for the softer sweetness. It's a bit tragic, like telling a child there's no dessert until they eat their broccoli. You sense a tension here, a tug of war between tradition and temptation. Further down the picket line, a younger horse nibbles its ration of dry grass, but glances over whenever you walk past with dates. You tease him a little, holding out a fruit and then hiding it behind your back, and the poor animal practically wobbles with indecision. Historians still debate whether these spoiled horses were actually weaker, or whether their sugar-laced diet helped them recover faster after hard riding. Maybe a rush of energy was worth a few moody outbursts. You watch a group of riders prepping for a scouting mission, checking bows, tightening girths, and then, slipping a date to each horse. One warrior catches your grin and shrugs. Better sweet than stubborn, he says, which could be the motto for every parent in the universe, too. As you drift around the fires, you overhear older horse masters whispering about ways to balance the sugar with stronger training, making sure a horse still respects the hard grass that made it tough in the first place. That blend of soft reward and harsh necessity seems woven into the entire Mongol mindset. A joke hits you. Mongol horse trainers might have invented the first cheat day diet. Grass all week, dates on Sunday. It makes sense, though. These horses carried their riders across impossible distances, survived arrow wounds and blizzards and endless battle. If a bit of sugar made them pause, made them happy, maybe that was worth the risk. You pat one shaggy shoulder, admiring the iron muscles still humming with energy under the dust. This horse could gallop 100 miles tomorrow. Date or no date, the breeze rises, lifting the smell of manure and dried grass into the sky, mingling with a faint sweetness. It's a reminder of how quickly comfort can become a vice, even out here on the steppes where hardship is the rule of life. And yet, you sense the horses haven't forgotten their instincts. When the dates run out, they always go back to chewing grass without complaint. That is their genius, you realize. They can love the sugar, but they'll survive without it. Just like their riders, who might dream of silk and spice, but always wake to felt and boiled mutton. You look at the row of horses, some dozing in the sunlight, some trying to sneak one last sniff at your pouch. The older rider relaxes at last, convinced his horses will remember how to chew tough grass when the time comes. You slip one last date to your faithful horse, earning a grateful nuzzle, and you grin at the quiet compromise. Sweetness, but only in moderation. As the horses settle back into a rhythm of munching dry forage, you sense how the camp itself breathes easier. Balance, after all, is the true secret of empire. Maybe dates could make a war horse lazy, yes, but they could also make it loyal, and loyalty is worth 1,000 miles of endurance. So you walk on, warm sun on your back, date pouch a little lighter, heart amused by how the tiniest sweetness could turn an army of war beasts into purring kittens, at least for a moment. The morning haze drifts away, and a shimmering sky stretches across the horizon like a great blue banner. You feel the restless energy in camp as riders begin to tighten girths, roll their woolen bedding, and check their arrows. Somewhere close, the low chanting of a shaman echoes through the cold air, blessing the day's departure. You move with the rhythm, stepping carefully between hooves and scurrying children, until a sudden laugh draws your attention. A pair of grizzled warriors stand arguing, each claiming that their horse runs faster after eating dates. One man holds up a half-chewed date, sticky between his fingers, as evidence, while the other gestures wildly at his horse's proud head. Mine outran yours by half a mile, he boasts. A mainstream historical fact pops into your thoughts. Mongol scouts were among the fastest couriers the world had ever seen, riding fresh horses in relays across incredible distances, sometimes more than 100 miles in a day. Their horses' stamina was legendary. But could a tiny dried fruit really make a difference? Historians still argue whether Genghis Khan's best mounts actually performed better with dates, or if that story is just sweet myth-making. You watch the horses nibble the treats, eyes wide and shining, and can't help wondering if there's truth to it. After all, a sugar jolt can push a warrior through exhaustion. Why not a horse? A fringe tidbit floats through your mind from an old Yun you heard by a smoky campfire. It was said the Khan's personal steed once refused to run until he'd had his ceremonial date, as if even a warlord's mount had to savor dessert before conquering the world. You wander closer as the two warriors continue their debate. They suddenly call you in to settle the matter, shoving you between their horses with a grin. Which one looks stronger? They demand. You glance from one sleek beast to the other, both shining with health, both restless, both with sticky date residue on their lips. They'll both outrun you, you tease, earning a chorus of hoots and backslaps. The sun glitters off polished stirrups as the men mount up, their laughter carried by the wind. You wonder if the horses really do sense something heroic in their sweet snack. Maybe it's not speed, but confidence, flowing from a date's sugary blessing. Nearby, a young woman adjusts her horse's bridle, slipping a final date to her mount before leading him toward the lineup of riders. The horse perks its ears, almost dancing with excitement. You catch a sparkle of pride in her eyes, as if the date were a sacred token of luck. Historians still debate whether this ritual feeding was mere routine or a sign of Mongol superstition. Perhaps it was a bit of both. These horses carried their riders through nightmarish campaigns, after all, and every scrap of ritual might have felt like a lifeline. The woman's horse stamps a hoof and tosses its head, muscles rolling under its dusty hide, practically humming with the coming challenge. You know in your gut he'll fly across the grass faster than any stallion fueled only on dry straw. A joke sneaks in. Maybe dates were the original Mongol energy gel, the medieval sports boost before sports even existed. You move aside as the riders begin testing their mounts. One after another, they spur them forward in short bursts, letting the horses stretch their legs before the long day ahead. The hoofbeats pound like distant drums, and the air seems to shimmer from the speed. You stand there, absorbing the sheer power on display. It's almost enough to believe the date legends. Each horse launches forward with a surge, as if the sugar still burned inside its veins. You see tails streaming like battle flags, necks arched with pride, riders leaning low and guiding them with gentle shifts of their weight. You can't help but marvel. Off to the side, an older herder tells a joke in a dusty voice. They run for dates, then conquer kingdoms for grass. You laugh with him, feeling how perfectly it sums up this odd marriage of power and sweetness. You look out across the assembled horses, their bodies glowing in the morning light, and feel a tingle of wonder. These were more than animals. They were legends on hooves, bearing warriors who redrew the maps of the world. And here they stand, demanding dessert before destroying their enemies. The smell of leather and dry sweat mingles with the faint perfume of crushed dates. It's a scent that will follow them to the far edges of Persia, Russia, even Hungary. Wherever they ride, so too will these tiny bites of sweetness. You think back on how dates had traveled across so many trade routes, tucked in merchant bags and caravan crates, only to end up fueling the most fearsome cavalry ever known. That twist of fate makes you grin. Who could have guessed that a humble palm fruit would become a kind of secret weapon? As the horses begin to settle again, some drinking from a water trough, some snatching at leftover hay, you spot a half date trampled in the dust. A crow hops over, pecking at the sweet pulp, and you wonder if even the wild birds have gotten a taste for this strange delicacy. Historians still puzzle over how much of Mongol victory came from strategy, how much from sheer fear, and how much from these loyal horses. You suspect a piece of fruit played its part, small but unforgettable. You move away, letting the camp sink back into its daily rhythm. Riders tighten their straps, sling bows across their backs, and check the weather. The date-fueled legends, eager and calm, wait for their next adventure. And you stand a moment longer, marveling at how something so simple could hold together so many dreams. The afternoon light glows soft across the steppe, that honey gold hue settling over every tent and horse like a gentle blessing. You wander through the camp, feeling the hush that comes with a moment's rest between journeys. The horses stand tethered, breathing slow, bellies round from their morning feed, and yes, still glancing your way for a final treat. You reach into your pouch, finding only one wrinkled date left. You roll it between your fingers, a tiny echo of all the stories you've walked through these past days. There is a quiet power in that sticky sweetness, something that speaks of survival, reward, even celebration. A mainstream historical fact rolls through your mind. After conquering so many lands, the Mongols often brought back more than treasure. They carried customs, beliefs, foods, even seeds from foreign gardens. Dates were among those gifts, planted in faraway oases or traded again and again, spreading like living memories. You move closer to a young foal tied near its mother. Its curious eyes lock onto the date in your hand. With a soft laugh, you break off a piece and offer it up. The foal nibbles tentatively, then eyes you with sudden, comical boldness, as if to say, "Don't even think that was enough." Historians still argue whether Mongol horse culture was permanently changed by the introduction of dates, or whether it was a passing phase, a quirk of empire that eventually faded. You like to imagine it left a mark. How could it not, when the story is so sweet? Nearby, an old rider oils his battered saddle, glancing up to smile at the foal's sticky muzzle. Best to learn young, he jokes, that a bit of sugar can save a hard day. It rings true, you think. Even for people, a moment of pleasure can turn fear into courage. A fringe tidbit comes to mind. A rumor told in hushed tones that Mongol horses, buried with their masters in royal graves, sometimes had dates placed in their mouths, a last treat for the endless ride beyond. Whether that ever really happened, or was invented by a scribe trying to add drama, no one can say for sure. But you stand there, imagining the great war horses of the Khan, galloping through the afterlife with dates between their teeth. The horses around you shuffle, some nosing at bits of leftover grass, others half dozing with drooping lids. Their calmness is contagious. You feel the day's edge softening, the worries of war and hunger giving way to this small moment of sweetness. You let your hand rest on one strong neck, warm under a coat that still smells faintly of sun-warmed date syrup. The horse sighs, leaning into you, and you smile, thinking how much trust is built on such simple things. A bite of sugar, a gentle voice, a moment of peace. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the ghosts of old battles, hoofbeats pounding across empty plains, the snap of bowstrings, the roar of conquest, and beneath it all, a quiet rhythm of trust built by these tiny treats. The younger riders chatter about tomorrow's route, how many rivers they must cross, whether the grass ahead is green or brown. One boy jokes that if the grass is too dry, they'll just buy more dates. Laughter follows him, warm and true, rolling over the plain like a soft drum beat. You look out at the horses, so patient, so powerful, and you wonder how many still carry that memory, that spark from their ancestors. They stand ready, trained to survive anything, yet willing to melt at the taste of a single date. That is their gift, and maybe their curse, too. Historians still puzzle over why the Mongol Empire collapsed so quickly after such a meteoric rise. But you suspect the secret is hidden in moments like this. Small sweetnesses that changed the heart, made the brutal world just a little easier to bear. You place the last piece of your date on a flat rock, letting the foal find it on its own, then straighten up and feel the breeze shift, carrying away the lingering smell of fruit and dust. The sun lowers, painting the steppe in a fading glow, a reminder that even legends must sleep. You leave the horses in their gentle dreaming, their bellies full, their spirits settled, and step away toward your own evening rest. The quiet camp singing with soft voices, and the whisper of the wind across endless grass. The sun slips away beyond the horizon, melting into a violet dusk, and the entire camp seems to breathe in slow unison. The fires burn low, sending up thin streams of smoke that fade into the star-pocked sky. You let your mind wander, letting the day's memories swirl around you in a slow, gentle current. Horses drowsing in a circle of peace, dates nestled like hidden jewels in a leather pouch. The comforting knowledge that even the fiercest warriors found a moment of kindness to share with their loyal mounts. Your steps slow, the earth beneath you cooling with the coming night, and you feel a sense of deep calm. The last voices fade to murmurs, the soft hush of hooves shifting, the far-off howl of a lonely wolf punctuating the night with a reminder of the world's wide-open silence. Breathe it in and let your shoulders ease, knowing that for now there is no rush, no battle, no hunger pressing in. Somewhere, a horse dreams of sticky dates, of warm hands and gentle words. Maybe you dream with them, carried across the star-swept plains on a whisper of sugar and trust. It is a kind of magic, you realize, this bond of sweetness and strength. So rest easy, friend, and let the night hold you close. Let the breeze soothe your skin, the faint smell of warm earth and old leather settle around you like a blanket. Tomorrow's stories can wait. Right now, there is only this quiet moment, stretching wide as the steppe itself, inviting you to sleep.